Hello and welcome everyone to FocusCore webinar, Diversity and Inclusion in the Supply Chain Sector. Thank you to so many of you for signing up. My name is Garvita Singh. I'm a consultant at FocusCore doing executive search. It is a pleasure to be hosting all of you today. I'd like to thank our absolutely wonderful panelist, Sakura Kuma-san, CEO, APM Terminals. Hello, Sakura-san.
Hello, everyone.
Misuzu Maruyama-san, CCO, Schenker.
Hi, hello.
And Nancy Ngou, Associate Partner at Ernst & Young. Hi, Nancy.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us today. This webinar is about diversity and inclusion in Japan and in the supply chain sector. Diversity and inclusion is a very high on demand, big subject in Japan leadership agenda today. And a few days ago, we celebrated International Women's Day on the 8th of March, which was celebrated all over the world. There are many success stories going on in international companies in Japan, and our speakers will share some insights today, and of course, also cover some challenges that remain. The first half of the webinar will be presentations from our panelists, and the second half will be tackling the questions that we've very kindly been sent by our attendees. Thank you very much for that. We will try and cover as many questions as possible. For this webinar, we have decided to use very few slides in order to promote more personal interaction between everyone. So some speakers will be using slides and others will be mostly talking and having engagement with the other speakers. With that, I'd like to invite our first speaker, Misuzu Maruyama-san, to share her insights.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Garvita, for your introduction. Actually, I have prepared a lot of slides, but then I'm going to cut short. Yeah. So can you see my slides screen?
Yes, okay. We do.
Good. All right. And then, yeah, hi. Thank you, Garvita and FocusCore Group to give us some great opportunity to introduce about our D&I. And I'm going to talk about my company and myself in relation to this D&I. So first of all, let me talk a little bit about our company. Our company is Schenker Seino here. We are the joint venture of the DB Schenker, the global logistics company, and the Seino Holdings, who is #1 B2B transportation company in Japan. And last year, DB Schenker has marked 150 years. Which is about, our company started like Meiji era, the time in Japan. So as of now, we cover 150 countries and 1,850 locations all over the world. So the core services we are offering is, air freight, ocean freight, international custom brokerage, contract logistics, and so on. Yeah. So where we are in Asia Pacific. In Asia Pacific, this is the map showing our presence. Our head office is located in Singapore. Some of you may notice I have a strong Singapore accent. It's because I have been there more than 20 years. So in APAC, Asia Pacific, we have 17,000 employees covering almost 500 locations. Yes, then I don't know why I have been in Singapore for that long and I am still in this industry. Okay, and then now let's move on to talk a little about our company in Japan. Our Japan head office is located in Tennozu near Shinagawa Station. And the Shinagawa, this location is quite convenient that we can hop onto Shinkansen easily and can go to Haneda and Narita Airport to catch the flight and close to Tokyo Port too. I'm sorry, Sakura-san, that your terminal, maybe I need to travel a little bit more from my office. Yeah.
Stu, you're always welcome.
Thank you very much. I love you. So,
Me too.
So we cover the presence like this and the 26 locations from Sapporo to Okinawa. Why so many locations is because of the contract logistics business, the warehousing. We manage the items like electronics items, fashion items, medicines, medicals, foodstuffs for distribution in all over Japan to deliver to your doorstep. Yeah, So this is our office in Tennozu. We have just renovated last year, so as Nagoya and Osaka as well. And this is the warehouse. So you can see ladies working, using their hands to do some fine works. And the warehouse, the rooftop has a very nice view. Yeah. Now let's move on to the how many female leadership we have in Schenker Asia Pacific. So in Schenker Asia Pacific, we divide the APAC into 7 clusters. And cluster head, we have 3 cluster head are female, which is in Northeast Asia. Miss On Shuwei is a Singaporean lady. She's located here in Tokyo. She's covering Korea and Japan. And prior to this position, she was a CEO Philippines. And before that, she was in the Asia Pacific head office to cover entire sales force. And the Indian subcontinent is also lady, Kinja. And Singapore, Malaysia cluster is covered by Miss Catherine Su. She's originally from Hong Kong and then moved to Singapore. Then she has been to Germany. Then I heard that she can command almost perfect German. Then now she back to Singapore and she is heading this cluster. And next one, the center is the country head of sales. We have 8 country head of sales are female. They actually, I was trying to count the male country head of sales. We have only 2, which is China and Indonesia. So you can see this is the female powerhouse. And in Asia Pacific Regional Head Office, female in leaderships are CFO, Ms. Lau Kim Foon. She's a long servicing person for Schenker. And CIO, Ms. Jessie Pan. And product management Ocean is also ladies. Now let's see how it is in Japan. Okay, so in the entire workforce we have here in Japan, 40% are female. And the managers, among the managers, about 17% are female managers, which is about 1 in 6 managers are female. And then our top management in head office here in Tennozu, 25%, which is 1 in 4 persons are female management. Okay, and then I just checked. So what is the average here in Japan? Then the Cabinet Office Gender Equality Bureau has a report. But the latest report shows 2020. The kacho, you know, kacho-san, the female kacho, among kacho, the female is about 11.5%. And bucho, female bucho, I don't know why it's a direct translation into English, but the female bucho is about 8.5%. So I think we are better than the Japanese average. And then unfortunately, I don't have any info about how local Japanese logistics companies are doing, but I guess we are in the global MNC do better in this area. Yeah. Okay. And then this is the photo of our management team. You can see 4 female here. And the one is CEO. You can just guess which one is which one, yeah? The one is CEO. The one is a head of HR. The another one is a risk management, the HSSEQ, and another one is myself. So when I first came here to Tokyo to assume this position, that was in 2018, I only saw 1 lady in this top management. That was a risk management and HSSEQ, and I was the second one. So actually I had a big culture shock back then because there are many areas are different from Singapore where I used to work. But slowly our boss changed, the British gentleman came in, this HR lady joined in, and then the now CEO is also a female. So I can say we have been gearing up and pushing towards even more female-friendly environment in many ways. Okay, I have another photo. Next photo here is our contract logistics site. The warehouse nowadays is much cleaner and much brighter. I wanted to find a better photo, but this is the only photo I can find. I'm so sorry. But you can see that so many female, the ladies are working in the warehouse. Yeah. Okay, so now this one. This one is our New Year parties photo. It's a female powerhouse from our contract logistics team. So you can see all happy faces. I'm very happy to see that many of them turn up to celebrate the New Year. and they are, they don't mind to show their face in public. Okay, now let me go. This is the most boring part, but let me talk a little bit about myself. So I studied pharmaceutical science, and after that, I didn't join any pharmaceutical company, but I wanted to see the world. Then I decided to move to Singapore without any job. And I tried to look for the job. Then I was able to find was insurance company and the logistics company because of my language command. And then I found insurance a little bit boring, so many contract reading, but the logistics company sounds more international, so I joined. And then I really did not know anything about it and unknown this field, but my boss was patiently guiding me. Then I started to learn. It was so interesting. Then every time I see, because we are not moving the people, but we are moving the cargo. So help cargo to travel the world. So when I look at the cargo, the label, or like a documents, shipping documents, that I started to daydream, oh, this is to go to Brazil, India, Spain, UK, Germany, those countries I have never been. So learning the new thing, or the documents and the cargo was always so interesting. And then our business, because we are servicing customer, so we always receive thank you from customers, and those are very satisfying as well. So in these first two companies, the Japanese companies, okay, actually I joined one Japanese, second Japanese, and European, then American. It's a little complicated, but in first two Japanese company, I did more contract logistics. So I learned how to design the process or draw the layout or set up the system to support the entire supply chain. And after that, I joined European company as a salesperson, but then all of a sudden, this company was acquired by another European company. Then I jump up to join American company. Okay, these are all happening in Singapore. Then when I joined American company, but this was also acquired by the Deutsche Bahn, German Railway, and now in DB Schenker. So since then, unexpectedly 15 years I'm in this company, and this company has been giving me the opportunities. So like every 5 years, I had a chance to move on. So 5 years in Schenker Singapore country office, and 6 years in regional head office. I was doing the global Japanese business development, and now 5 years in Japan. So when I was doing the global business development in the regional head office, I had the opportunity to travel the world for business, and I was able to understand and face some challenges with different business cultures. So that is the time my daydream in the earlier time, only looking at the documents, came true. So now I bring this expertise or experience back to Japan to lead the sales team to provide the logistics services to customers. So maybe I stop the sharing. Okay. So why I think it is good for the logistics industry is good for not Japanese, good for female. Yeah. So the logistics business is a service line, and the technology is the most important, but on the same time, customer-oriented mindset is very important. So female can do good in communication, and we also need to care customers and the customers' products. So in warehouse, not always heavy-duty items, but we have many small items like electronics, chips, or like a merchandise or medicines, clothing, the bags, and cosmetics to put on. So those items are female friendly, and also we need to have a good hands to handle. Yeah. So all in all, to summarize from my experience, I didn't talk much about challenges, but only the good point that logistics is the industry a female can shine. I hope more female to get to know about our industry and join us. Yeah. So our business stays strong, even under COVID-19 situation. I think all you know, then if you are facing any difficulties in a male-dominant Japanese company, please consider to come to the global multinational logistics company. Yeah. And yeah, thanks for listening. I think our doors are always open. You can speak to Garvita for advice. Thank you.
Thank you, Maruyama-san. That was really great insights about just your journey in this industry, as well as how, females can really consider it as an option and how it is something that they can shine in.
Yeah.
That was great insight from you.
Thank you.
I'd like to invite Sakura Kuma-san to be our next presenter.
Thank you, Garvita, and thank you for Misuzu. That's a great opening presentation. You set up the tone, which is very positive and passionate. Thank you so much. It is my privilege to be here, everyone. Just as Garvita introduced, my name is Sakura Kuma. I'm the CEO of APM Terminal Japan. Many of you might know APMT is a group company of Maersk Group. So that you see from a background, the two rainbow containers produced and carried and presented to the world by Maersk. And they're also representing our company policy toward diversity and inclusion. For me, today I didn't prepare any slides presentation, but maybe because there's no slides can contain all my passions toward this topic. So I will just talk a little bit about my opinions and also give you some view of our company policy. First of all, start from myself. I mean, like Garvita just mentioned, last week, we had the International Women's Day. And every year when we celebrate this day, I always tell myself, I wish one day that we do not need to celebrate this International Women's Day because there's no International Men's Day. Why we need a celebration? And it's just one day out of 365 days, right? And that means we haven't get what we want to be. No matter what we say, no matter how for some industry or for some companies like DB Schenker, they're doing a good job. They're kind of leading class in terms of the diversity and inclusion. And so is Maersk Group, which I'm very proud of being part of. But from a global wise, still there's a lot of situations, a lot of women didn't get the equal chances to develop their careers and even in a younger age, their education. But if we just look into the negative side, it never ends. But where we are today, we're here, 4 females, we're forming these powerful sessions. What we really want to do is to increase the awareness. And also being here is a presentation. Just by 4 of us being here is really a great presentation of the future, the opportunity. So if we're in the tunnel and we see the light at the end of the tunnel, and each one of us, Nancy, Misuzu, and Garvita, and all my colleagues, and all the audience, each one of us would hold a torch. And if there's many people who hold this torch, and we can turn the night sky into a bright sky. That's what I believe. So one day I hope that we don't get rid of the International Women's Day, and let's just live in a very normal, natural base, nothing to be celebrated. And the other thing I would like to touch upon is diversity inclusion is not just about gender, not just about the female or male. It is more about be equal to all the minority, nationalities, LGBTs, you name it, region or religions. We have a lot of differences, and the differences is what we call diversity. And sometimes in order to accommodate the diversity, we need to pay a price. Can you imagine yourself, for example, if you are a believer of Hindu, so you won't eat cow, you won't eat pork, and suddenly if you met somebody who does, what do you think? Right? People are different to you. If you go to church, what do you think about those people to go to mosque? If you're Buddhist, what do you think of those people who doesn't really have any religions? And if you are American, you have your standard of you value, your way of thinking. And when you see somebody from a totally different world, what do you think? First of all, people are different, and accommodate that difference. It's really a courage, and that we call diversity. In Maersk's leadership team, we have 91 nationalities. One of the things that I'm really proud of our company is we accommodate all kinds of differences, not only gender, but also a lot of other things, and put them all together. We call it diversity. I guess I can go on and on, but I really want to pause here because Garvita prepared a lot of good questions for us to discuss. And I know Nancy is also had a good presentation for this webinar. So I would like to hand it over to Nancy. Would you be able to take it? Thank you, Nancy.
Sure. Thank you so much. I forgot I was a panelist. I was really enjoying Misuzu-san and Sakura-san's talks. I'm so humbled to be on this panel with these amazing women. Truly, I am a consultant. I work with Ernst & Young, and I've been with EY for 38 years now. And I lead here in Japan our change management, culture change, and diversity and inclusion practice. And the reason why they all fit together is that DE&I truly is a culture change. So that's how we view DE&I, and that's how it fits into the practice that I lead. I'm very passionate about DE&I. I've been involved within EY probably since the early 90s when we first started the effort within the US. So I was in the US for 23, 24 years, and I've been in Japan now for 15 years. So as a consultant, when I talk about DE&I, I really had to reflect at one point in time on why it is that I'm so passionate about this topic. It really took me some time to sit back and think about it. And I really think it's because, I was always unique, whether it was at school or at work, as either the only female or the only Asian, the only left-hander, the only person lower than 5 feet tall. There's always something about me that was unique. So, of course, I was teased or passed over or left out, but I didn't really notice. I didn't dwell on it. I just looked forward. And I know that the ladies on this panel are the exact same. That's what you do. You just look forward and you focus on what you can control, which is the excellent work that you do, or, how you treat each other, how you treat others fairly. So, as an adult, I love my uniqueness. It makes me memorable. It makes me stick out. And I do have a deep passion for making other people feel like they belong, and to celebrate their uniqueness just as I appreciate my own, and make sure people don't feel embarrassed by their uniqueness, because that's what makes them them. And I think Sakura-san talked really eloquently about diversity and gave some excellent examples. And when I talk about diversity, I always say diversity is a fact, right? We are diverse. We have our characteristics. Some can change, some don't change, some change depending on the circumstances. So for example, in the US, I'm unique because I'm Asian. In Japan, I'm not unique because I'm Asian, but I'm unique because I'm American. So it just depends on the circumstances, but diversity is your fact. Equity, I like to say, is a right, that people have a right to be treated equitably. And inclusion is a choice. But we have a choice as to who we invite to lunch. We have a choice as to who we take to our customers with us, or who we bring to the table when we're having important discussions or making decisions. So diversity is a fact, equity is a right, inclusion is a choice, and then the outcome of that is that feeling of belonging, that sense of I belong, and I can really be as productive as I want to be, because I don't have all these other barriers in my way. So for me, that's the what of DE&I. Now I want to talk about the why. And I think a lot of you know, but I just want to say it, and I think we all have to say it over and over again, that it's really a business imperative. Not just because we have a shrinking workforce in Japan, but because we need the creativity, we need the ideas. None of us have all the answers, and the saying two heads are better than one, and that's true. 5 heads are better than one. So the more diverse, the more uniqueness, the more ideas we have, the stronger, the better, the better products, the better services. But you have to have that inclusion that I talked about, right? Diversity is one thing. I just see one question: how can you get more diversity in a company? I think I would argue there is diversity in your company already, but the secret sauce is that inclusion, to make people feel like their voice counts. Because if you have diversity, but people don't feel their voice counts, nothing's going to happen, right? In fact, they'll probably just leave because they don't feel included. So the diversity plus inclusion equals business benefits. That's my equation. So just remember that. I'm an accountant. I like equations. Diversity plus inclusion equals business benefits. So some examples is many studies on this topic. So you see like some studies, so 19% increase in productivity, 45% improved market share if you have that secret sauce, diversity plus inclusion, 19% higher retention. I think, what was it, 45% of the companies say, or no, sorry, 85% of the companies say that if they have a diverse and inclusive environment, then they will have greater innovation. And in the supply chain area, also fewer accidents, right? So I could explain these a lot more, and happy to in the Q&A if you'd like, but that's the why. We've got the what, we've got the why. Let me talk just briefly about a little bit about the how in supply chain. So if we look at the supply chain, design, source, produce, deliver, sell, and the customer service, there's components in every single one of those phases where D&I makes a difference, where a leader, a manager, an employee can make a difference. So, in design, of course, the innovation, people bringing their ideas forward. So creating that space where people feel like they can contribute their ideas is very important. And everybody can do that. So this is kind of my call to action for all of you on the call that are in the supply chain world. Everybody can do that. Everyone can listen to another person. It doesn't take money. You just listen and acknowledge their ideas and consider them seriously. There was a study done one time. I don't know if it was a study or if it's more just kind of common feeling that even if you have one person at the table, you're not necessarily going to get their voice. That if they don't feel like they have the psychological safety where they can contribute their voice, they're not going to say anything. So the common understanding is that you have to have at least 3 people at that table who are diverse. So it could be, 3 women, or, so that they feel like, okay, there's a little bit of mass around me. So maybe if I say something that doesn't make sense, they might back me up, or, that sense of safety is really critical. The next area in terms of supplier, a lot of talk right now about supplier diversity. We don't see a lot of that in Japan yet, but I am seeing it more and more. In fact, I'm with the American Chamber of Commerce in Japan, and we're having an event next month on supplier diversity. and the importance of it, and what companies are doing and how you can go about finding diverse companies. So that's another area for those of you in procurement who can have an impact on DE&I. Production. I just want to share an example of a company that I'm aware of who's done such an excellent job with DE&I. And it's an example of both design, production, and sales. So this company was trying to increase the amount of sales they had on a particular vehicle. It was an SUV or minivan. I'm sorry, it was a minivan. And they said, why, knowing that, 70 to 75% of the purchasing decisions are made by the woman in the household, they realized they need to start to market this car to more women. Why aren't more women interested in our minivan? So they brought their women's network in and said, drive this car for, a week or two, tell us what you think. And they came back with design ideas. For example, one of the ideas was, okay, when I'm trying to put the baby seat into the car, into the back seat of the car, it's really hard. Like I'm trying to squeeze myself in. So they widened the door opening area so that it's easier to get the car seat in. And a bunch of other designs. But then when it came to the manufacturing plant, they said, we really need, to hire more people. Why can't we have more women into the plant, into the factory? And the women came in again and said, well, if you lowered some of this equipment, or you had some assistance, some, machine assistance to pick things up and move it, it'd be a lot easier for us to work in the factory. So they did that. And not only did it help the women, but it helped the men. They had fewer injuries, they had fewer sick days, because it was a lot less difficult on them physically to work in the factory. So a lot of the times you have benefits, they benefit everybody. And then on the sales side, they brought in more women sales people, and then they were able to increase the sales of that vehicle considerably. So that's just a really great example, I think, of where a company has really taken their diversity and inclusion efforts into the company in a very serious way and in all aspects of their supply chain. So my message as I stop is that every single person can have an impact on diversity and inclusion, no matter where you are in your organization. So back to you, Garvita.
Thank you very much, Nancy, for the insight and for really sharing some really eye-opening figures about how change is being made in the different sectors. So that's really great to hear. So now we'll be heading into our Q&A session, which our attendees have very kindly sent in some really good questions. And we'll be going through as many as we possibly can with the restrictions of time. So for the first two questions actually are really interesting topics, which I'd like to invite all our panelists to share their thoughts on. So the first one is, what is the easiest strategy to increase diversity in the 3PL industry in Japan?
I'll go first. I think this is a very easy one. The easiest strategy would be make female leadership visible, no matter whatever, no excuse, right? There's no chicken and egg conversations. Like I said, diversity comes into a price. It's not easy to say, hard to do. But if you don't start to do it, then everything just end up like an empty story. And how to make the female leadership visible? It is indeed just like Misuzu just giving us good examples in her presentation. Increase the numbers of female leaders in your organizations. And very interestingly, I really think a lot about the female leadership. today we have a female leadership all in this panel, and I already recognize that we're so different with each other. And that differences is also a component, a very important component of diversity. And if we add this diversity, this unique factors that each of us have, add that to the already diversified male leaderships, and then there sometimes could be a create some chaos. For example, in the very traditional world, there's a certain type of leadership, the men-dominated kind of leadership, right? We call it, you can call it old style, old fashioned, whatever, right? And then most of the female, especially in Japan or in the Asian culture, were not educated, were not expected to take the leadership when we were a kid, right? For example, in my previous career, and I won't say the name, but it's a Japanese company. So there's a senior leadership. This a lady senior than me, and she was given the leadership. And how she reacted to that role is the way a woman in an organization, there's a certain unspoken rules that you behave. Even you ask your subordinates to do some work. It's so different if a man does it or a woman does it. And especially because she was elder than me, so you can regard her the previous generation than me, right? So there's more hardship for her to overcome in order to take the leadership. So the leadership was a confusion for her. However, the responsibility of her needs to keep the ball rolling, needs to deliver what it's supposed to do to be delivered. So she still used her own way of the leadership, which let other people, including her subordinates, feel like, okay, that's the sign of lack of leadership. But I see it differently. She tends to use a very soft way to ask people, but for me, that's the way, based on her experience, the best way to have male move. You might see it as a lack of leadership, but the organization runs. And from that, I catch a glimpse of the diversity of leadership. That's for her generation. And since she paved the way, and for the next generation like me, when we come up, we choose not to use her style. We use more manly style or my style. So this is a real diversity examples. And when we invite the females into the leadership teams, we need to accommodate that. We shouldn't just expect one style of leadership come in play. There might be more styles, more kinds of style than we expected, than we could even understand. So what we should do, we should learn to understand. We observe, we don't judge. We need to understand why the leadership is going to be like that. So I'm trying to explain why I'm saying diversity comes with a price. The price is the time you invest, the understanding you try to put in. And if we do that, then the diversity will become more natural. So I was just touching upon the easiest strategy. However, the easiest strategy takes the longest time and it takes the deepest efforts to realize.
Perhaps Nancy and Maruyama-san, if you'd like to add.
Go ahead, Misuzu-san. It's okay, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So I was actually wondering the easiest in what way. So Sakura-san explained in a precise way, then I agree with you. Then it really takes time and then come with that as a price. So my answer to that is yes, set the quota and let everybody complain. Oh, the female get that position is because of quota. you may need to endure for a while, but then as time goes by, we can prove our capability. Then that becomes natural, then no one will complain about that. Then I think, again, Sakura-san, you are right about the generation by generation, their behavior or their approach is changing and different. So we need to support or create the next generation. So to help the next generation to have a better understanding of the diversity. From my experience, I think to let as many people as possible to have exposure, like overseas exposure, what's going on in Asia. In 1990s, when I first went to Singapore, I already saw the banking sectors, half of the board members are female. Yeah, so I think let younger ones or everyone to have more exposure is key to the, I don't know whether that's the easiest, but that's the key to have increased diversity. Thank you. Over to you, Nancy.
I think you ladies did such a nice job. I'll just say one really quickly because I want to make sure we can get to some other questions. But as I mentioned in my talk that I would argue you probably already have diversity. The key is to create that culture, that environment of inclusion. And I think once you have that culture that you will attract more diverse people. If you're talking specifically about women, I would say, take a look at your recruiting activities. Are you recruiting from the same place all the time? Are you asking FocusCore to bring you a diverse slate of people? Are the right people interviewing them? Do you have a diverse panel of people interviewing them? But you can bring in diversity, but you've got to have that inclusion or they're not going to stay. So, Garvita, back to you.
Thank you, Nancy, and thank you, Sakura-san and Misuzu-san, for sharing those great answers. Another really good question that we got was, this is something many people asked. So this is, what was the difficulty you faced working in a male-dominated industry, and how did you manage?
Who want to go first?
Okay, so I guess yes, my profession is very male dominated. Like I said, there were no women partners when I joined. To me, it was just, as I said, focus on what you can control, and that control is do excellent work. The other thing, though, I have to say is that I specifically worked for people that I felt were going to be vocally supportive of me. So if I did do excellent work for them, I wanted to work for people who would talk about me because I wasn't going to do it myself. I wasn't going to tell everyone because I was in the US. Remember that, where the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So I wasn't going to, toot my own horn. Sorry to keep using all of these phrases, but yeah, I needed to work with people who would do that for me. So I just had to do really good work, which is the only thing I could control at the time. Sakura-san, I'm sure you could talk about this for 2 hours, probably.
I just don't want to take too much time because every question, all of us can go on and on. Misuzu, why don't you share your thoughts? Because I'm really interested. I'm really curious on
I don't know why
learning your experience as well.
Let me lower my hands first. Yeah, okay, because my background is sales. So salesperson is much easier to do there because the number and your capability tells. So in that environment, usually I talk about my customers or how to develop business, or especially myself as a Japanese in a global MNC environment. So we talk about customer and business and how and numbers. And then by doing that, the audience is really interested in the developing business or growing the numbers. So I did not have any challenges as a female, even in a male environment. Yeah, but mostly my experience is from outside of Japan. So probably if this happened in Japan, it might be different. I'm sorry, I do not know. Yeah, Sakura-san, please.
Okay. I think the previous conversation that I had with Nancy and Garvita in the pre-sessions, I kind of touch upon this topic. I would just reshare with all the audience. When I joined the shipping industry, well, back then it was an opportunity for me because I always wanted to do an international background kind of job, right? Having this big scale that I can develop my career. But when people always ask me, why did you choose to join this kind of man-dominated industry? And my answer is always, which industry is not? Right? Can you name one? So this is the thing. When you are growing up in this kind of environment, you take it for granted. You don't take it as an issue. Unless one day you hit the wall, you hit the wall. But then again, since you're growing up in this environment, you absorb it in your immune system, which I call it dongkangyuk. If you put a different perspective, like a D&I, you will say, oh, that's mistreat, that's unfair. But for me, maybe dongkangyuk, whatever you call it, because I am a believer that the only thing that you can change is yourself. You cannot change others. You cannot immediately change the attitude or the treatment from other people to you. But what you can change is your reaction, is your perception. The perception and reaction of yourself you can change. And at any circumstances, the last human freedom is to choose your behavior. So instead of choose, oh, this is unfair, I really hate that people, I really hate that person. Instead of, put yourself in this helpless hatreds, I always think, okay, how can I make a difference? How can I do it differently? If this way doesn't work, if I cannot change that person, then I have to change my path. Then that is a practical practice. This doesn't not just to only apply for the man-dominated world. It actually applies for any difficulties you confront. So keeping this dongkanggyoku or this positiveness. If this door cannot open, then I can try the other window. If this path is a dead end, I'll just try another one. So I guess if we want to someday embrace a day that we don't need to celebrate the International Women's Day, first of all, we need to be tough, and we need to be happy. I hate the toughness come with a sad face. That is why you found me always smile. And the smile is not just put on my face, it's from the bottom of my heart. Yeah, be dongkang. Hope you answered the question.
That's great, Sakura-san. Thank you all for answering this question with your own different perspectives to it. I think we all learned a lot. I'd like to go on to our next question. It's also a very kind of a subject that many attendees wanted to ask about. And this is, how can leaders measure the impact of their diversity and inclusion efforts, and what metrics should they be tracking to gauge success?
I think that's a perfect question for a consultant.
Yes, thank you. And an accountant at that. So yes, there's different things that you can be measuring. You can be measuring input, you can measure output. So you can measure the effort, input meaning the efforts that you are putting forth, that you, other leaders, are putting forth to create that inclusive culture, to being open. and, interviewing, diverse candidates, hiring diverse candidates, and then you can measure outputs as well, which is, it could be representation, it could be, what is the like compensation gap? What is the gap in performance ratings? What is the gap in your sales force being assigned to the top clients or customers? So you can measure the effort and you can measure the results. I think it's really important to do both. A lot of companies just think, oh, I want to look at how many women I have at manager. And yes, that's an important measure, but the way to get to manager is what you need to really focus your energies on. And that's the input, how you're, like I said, look at the entire employee life cycle, and from hiring, attracting, hiring, developing, assigning, your succession planning, all of it, making sure that you're really being open-minded and inclusive in how you're doing that. And leaders need to be held accountable. Leaders need to set their own targets for the inputs and the outputs, and really be held to meet those, right? So those are my thoughts as a consultant. Others, Misuzu-san, you must have some thoughts there. I see you laughing.
Yeah, I like your consultant comment. Thank you very much. That's very interesting.
I agree. I think she is a perfect one to answer that question.
Diversity of thought. So.
Yeah, because for me, now, see, this is a modern world. Everyone puts some dollars as an investment. So when you do the investment, you want the return. So people are asking, okay, how do you measure the efforts? How do you measure the results, the return of your investment? But I think this is really a long-term strategy. We don't measure it by a quarter base. We don't measure it in a peer base. It's not an annual base, and I think this is a investment with a so much bigger scale. We're investing our future. I only want to ask one question back to the people who asked that question is, if the person has a daughter, right? And the daughter will take maybe 20 years to grow up. And what kind of word we want her daughter after graduation from the school confront? What kind of word he or she wants her daughter live in? That is the return of the investment. I do not measure it in the immediate effects. Like I said, diversity was a price. Sometimes if you measure one male leader and a female leader, you might come to the conclusion says, oh, the male leader is better, but we're not doing the individual comparison. We're talking about investment toward the future. What kind of future you want your daughter live in? What is the future if you are a minority, you are the minority lives in? Like I said at the beginning of this session, diversity is not just about female, male, not about gender, right? So if we can be patient enough to look into this investment, not measured by the financial figures, well, understand financial figures are very important to sustain our business. But if you look into a long-term run, then you can get your eyes off this just numbers. We're not talking about real numbers. And there's a lot of investment cannot be measured by numbers immediately. For example, now we're talking about decarbonization agenda. If you just put the numbers in there, okay, no project can be done in the short term. And we're also talking about a lot of environmental responsibilities. For example, the microplastics in the ocean, right? That's a cost to gather them back. And that is also a cost to educate people not to even throw those garbage into the ocean or into anywhere. Because everywhere you throw them out, it goes to the ocean and it comes back to us because of the ecosystem. So anyhow, let's look into this agenda for a long run. Be more long-sighted. So that's, I'm not a consultant, so my question might be not a perfect answer.
But we confirm. Now I know that you say that you wanted to see the big scale. That's why you joined the shipping line. So now I know that you really see the big pictures.
Right, and you as well, Misuzu. We're kind of in the same industry. Now every shipping line, including Maersk, is talking about how to do the door-to-door B2B.
Yeah.
See, so we're kind of really just like brothers and sisters.
Yeah, exactly. I was wondering, I thought you wanted to make fun of the glasses.
Oh, yes.
To see the big
this is the
pictures.
thing. Okay. I'm already getting my reading glasses. And at the print sessions, every lady wear glasses.
I can see you guys now.
So I guess we want the glasses to make us look more intelligent than we are.
That is why I didn't take off my glasses.
Oh, sorry. I want to make this joke, so I took it off intentionally. And thank you for bringing it up. I love you so much.
Thank you.
That's great. I really like the insights from everyone. And yeah, it is really about the big picture, like Sakura-san mentioned, and as everyone added as well. There's some questions we've gotten just now from the people that are watching. One of them is, what initiative have you taken to make your organization more diverse? And what initiative to make them more inclusive as well?
If I can just go very quickly first, hire more female in terms of the gender that we're talking about today, because it related to International Women's Day. But again, all minority, if I have an opportunity, I will consider it, because it starts from hiring somebody into your organizations. All other things start from there. So action needs to be taken. That's mine. Hand it over to you guys.
Yeah, hi, we have, yeah, you're right that we hire more females, especially those new graduates. And also we have more session to mix together to get to know each other. So by having some social activities, rather than just a business topic, people get to understand, we create the psychological safety environment, as Nancy mentioned earlier, then, we can have a more diversified environment. Yeah, Nancy?
Yeah, I know we're right at time, but I think having an a women's network is really important, but one that is supported and sponsored by leadership, so that when they come up with ideas, somebody's listening to them and doing something with them. We have many initiatives inside EY, mentoring programs. We have we do a lot of training and development around unconscious bias, inclusive leadership, empathetic leadership, really focusing on changing our culture. We do surveys every year on our culture to make sure that we're making progress. We do upward feedback to the partners to make sure they're creating an inclusive culture. So lots of things. It's about changing your culture, but also supporting the people who need a voice. Yeah,
that's great, Nancy. Thank you for answering that as well. So we're out of time, but just some end comments from my side. I just like to thank our wonderful panelists for educating us and really shedding light on this important subject, as well as our attendees for joining us and really engaging with your contributions in terms of questions. And just quickly, FocusCore, we're a executive recruitment company. So if you have any needs in terms of career or hiring, feel free to reach out to me. And once again, thank you everybody for joining today's session, and we'll see you in our next webinar.